must die young.
Or Outcasts are go in this case. And thank you for tuning in to the Outcast Creative Industry Interviews. We try and do about one of these a week, although we will slow down for the month of August because some of us are away. Got a fantastic group of guys coming in tonight. I'm here with Suzette Pluck, who's not yet conscious that she's live on camera. As you can tell, she's studying feverishly. How you doing, Suzette?
I'm very well. Thank you, Lance, for that.
That's about the most patronising response you've ever given me, and there are plenty of them to choose from.
Sure.
So, yeah, just Suzette runs Outcasts in Birmingham, which is a drop-in acting class. I run the one in London. It's our last class this coming Monday before we break for the summer. In addition to that, we have the channel where we talk to people on all sides of the creative industries. We had the guys behind the Lone Wolf book series with us the other day, which is on the shelf behind me. And we're going to be talking to some guys who build these things, which I'm a big fan of, as you can see, miniature models that appear in numerous films and television shows, although, of course, a lot of them now have been replaced by CGI. So without any further ado, I am going to bring them in. So first of all, these guys all come from a Facebook group online, which is called Encourage, Teach and Learn, the Gerry Anderson Model Builders Group. And they build the models with incredible detail, often to studio scale. So the same size as the originals that were built for these shows. First of all, we have Richard Ashton. Thank you very much for joining us, Richard, in your sweatbox there, surrounded by tools and bits and pieces.
You're in my workshop.
Indeed. Then we also have Paul Gray, no relation to Barry Gray, who did the music for Thunderbirds, or at least I don't think so. Haven't asked him.
No, I wish I was.
If only. Then we wouldn't have had any issue with the copyright of playing
Exactly.
the tune. And by last, but no means least, the man still with the 70s hairstyle, Rob Denham. Here he is, and he's the man who started the group on Facebook. Rob's got a bit of lag on his video today, as we've already established, but we think we'll just about make do. So I suppose an obvious question for us to start, and by the way, if anybody's playing this back on a device, we can hear it. So make sure you mute the device, because otherwise we'll get a horrendous echo all the way through this. So, yeah, an obvious place to start would be to ask each of you in turn, what was the show or the event in your life, or the film that you went to see, or the Ray Harryhausen movie, perhaps, that influenced you and got you on the road to kind of building models, building miniatures. I'm going to start with you, Richard, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, end of the day, when I've been building since our age of 8. And as a kid, because I was born in 1971, and I've always loved sci-fi and Thunderbirds, Buck Rogers' 25th Century, and such things like that, and even the original Battlestar Galactica. And it was my thing when I used to go to the shop to buy an airplane or something like that. I want to convert it into something like a Viper, or convert it into a Thunderbirds craft. The actual the model wasn't available. So this was the art of the scratch building that started very early on. And yeah, 51, not 51, get it right, not putting years on my age. Being 50, I mean, I'm doing big stuff like this. So this is studio scale Battlestar Galactica new one from 2004 Viper. Sadly, the entire show was all CG. But if they had the money, I think they would have gone back to the practical models.
We'll get back to your collection in a little bit. Thanks for that. And that's not the one that you built when you were 8 years old.
No. I wish.
What was the model that you built when you were 8? Just out of curiosity.
I think I was building Spitfires, where I was handing extra guns on them, and just might get hold of one aeroplane and make another aeroplane out of it. If you know what I mean, put extra fins on it, make it a bit more sci-fi looking.
Sounds like wacky races.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. We're going to go to Paul. No relation to Barry Gray now. Paul, that looks like a Shadow mobile from the show UFO behind you, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a studio scale one. It's a double one. On the side that you can see, it's a Shadow control, and then if you turn it around on the other side, it's Shadow 3, and you just take the dish off, which I think is what they did in the original series, so they didn't have to manufacture 4 or 5 mobiles to.
Yeah. I can only recall there being at the most. I think there were 2, weren't there, in one episode? That you saw at the same time in the same shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So same question. What got you started? Same question.
Well, unfortunately, I'm a little bit older than Rich. Add another 10. When I was a kid, models of Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlett didn't exist, or I just didn't know of the shops that sold them. So I was totally reliant on a Danish brick company to do the best I could to manufacture my interpretation of the craft and the vehicles that I saw on the telly. So yeah, it was hard work trying to get the basic shapes, because back then you didn't have too many.
Speaking of Lego, by any chance?
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Because there's a Lego Death Star. I also did quite a lot with Lego to try and build things I saw in movies, so I can completely relate to that influence. And I wish I had a photograph of everything I built with Lego as a kid.
Exactly. Yeah, that would have been really good.
It would, wouldn't it? Just to see all the stuff that you created, from your own imagination. Because back then there wasn't Star Wars Lego, and I built the trench. As soon as I got back, I built the trench and X-wings. Probably all looked really rubbish, but I thought it was good. So what was the first thing you built? Can you remember? A scratch build, or that was slightly different?
Yeah, the first scratch build I ever made was a mobile, actually. It was nowhere near as good as this one. This was before the internet, and the only resource you had was a couple of fan magazines and the Phil Ray drawings that he'd done. So you basically use those. I didn't know any of the little kit bits that they'd stuck on the side. And I remember taking it up to Comet Miniatures in London, which I think was a big influence for me. That was where I met Bob, and that's where I properly got into scratch building, seeing what all these other guys were up to and what they could do, and just try to pick up as many tips from them as possible.
Fantastic. And we'll get into all the minutiae of that in a little bit. Thanks very much, Paul.
No problem.
Last but by no means least, Rob. So tell us, contestant number 3, what's your name and where did you come from? No, what got you started into model building? What were the first influences, dare I ask?
The first influence that I had was watching the TV show Stingray. Stingray was released, and I didn't watch the originals. They may have been backlogs, but I'd have been about 3 years old at the time. And then at the age of 5, like Paul, I built my models out of Lego because there was nothing available. And then after that, kits became available. So I started building those. Got into an abundance of other hobbies: surfing, martial arts, acting. And then I got back into building the models, which I the first scratch build, to answer that question, was Skydiver. And I built the submarine body, the opening of Tony James's shop down in London, Comic Miniatures, and that then became a 3-foot model in the end. So, and I've just progressed since then. And the materials, the kits, the paint, anything that we use today is 30 years better than it was 30 years ago. So even the art of model building is easier by standard today, and you end up with a much, much better finish, definitely. Does that come through, Lance?
Is Lance gone mute?
I don't
Yes,
know.
I forgot. I muted myself. Sorry, I was going to say the other bonus. I've got that handy for Rob later. The other bonus is that you've now got 3D printers for printing the smaller things that you can't get from kits or that they, because of course a lot of these things when they made them originally were pillaged from other kits that don't exist anymore.
No, you're exactly right. Unfortunately, the ones that you need are just getting so much more expensive on eBay. People are finding out what ones we used, and it's just becoming ever increasingly harder to find the ones that you need to build the models.
And just to make it clear for people watching, and I'll say this again at the end as well, certainly as far as Paul and Richard are concerned, you also all undertake personal commissions. So if somebody comes to you and says, I'd like a 3-foot crab logger, please, or can I have a studio size Thunderbird 2, you guys can go away and give them a price and take the money up front and build it for them.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
We'll go on holiday in Barbados. That's great.
Yeah, that's the cunning plan, hopefully.
Yeah. So I mean, I know these things aren't cheap, and we'll get into some of that in a minute. We've got a couple of comments from people already. I've been looking forward to this all day. The wife's watching Coronation Street. Mate, I'd be looking forward to anything other than watching Coronation Street. So, because Ian McKellen's not in it anymore. And then we've also got Jimbo Mac. Enjoy Richard's work on Facebook. Great modeler. Fantastic. And we've got a question from him coming up, which I'll ask in a sec. So, yeah, I mean, Rob, combining martial arts with miniature model building, probably not two hobbies that people would traditionally think go well together, especially if you get angry, because then you might smash all your models up.
There is that point, but the way I feel at the end of the day, that they're all a form of art. And we, as individuals, get to express ourselves that way. So if you're a dancer and you can dance, or if you're a martial artist and you can break things, or you're a model maker and you can build, these fantastic miniatures, it's all a form of art. And I've enjoyed that all my life. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. I think it's fair to say that in many ways, it's also it was at one point a dying art. There wasn't many people out there still doing it, and then the internet came along, and that kind of like with many hobbies, it united people. I mean, it saved the internet definitely saved board war games from going under as a hobby, because I've got loads of them over here. And now no one in that market publishes a game until they ascertain exactly how many people want a copy of it. And they do it on pre-orders, so they know they're already going to break even. So, I mean, that's not the same business model, obviously, when it comes to making miniatures. But my point is that was quite a niche hobby. And the internet united all those people, and it gave it new life, and all these games started getting published again. I think model making, in a sense, is getting that as well. But the thing that's really disappointing is that all the independent modelling and toy shops, they've nearly all gone now, haven't they? They've all disappeared.
Yeah.
It is. It's a very sad case where the beloved model shop that you used to have in every town, city, is now just phasing out. I mean, we've got Hobbycraft, but it's not the same going to your local model shop that had lots of railways and die casts and having all the stuff that you need to be scratch building, or just buying a plane or just something for your lad to build. I'm very fortunate in Chesterfield that we've got WD Models, which is still going. And I tell you, without that shop being there, I couldn't produce half the work I do, because they've got everything I literally need for scratch building, from brass, aluminium, plastics, shapes, everything you need.
Right.
So
So I mean,
all online now then? Is it all online that you have to get your stuff?
A lot of when we had the pandemic, I had a lot of issues because I was still building models for customers, but I ended up having to go online, try and find stuff, but I still struggled. And luckily, my friend's shop would do mail order, which was literally me popping to the shop and getting what I needed. But the shop was closed, so we just had to social distance and all that kind of stuff. But it is really hard to get really what you need. A local model shop, you can go in there and you've got a piece of plastic and it's a certain shape, and you go, I need some more of this for the certain job. You've got a piece in your hand. You can just mate it up to what you want. Off you go. When you're ordering online, you're a bit blind because you're hoping you're going to get the correct thing, and then sometimes you don't. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot harder. But I wish model shops would come back. Really do.
Yeah, I mean, I found quite a few of them in France on my travels when I used to pop over there, and I hope they're still going strong. But over here, every time you go to find one you remember was there, you go back in that town and it seems to have disappeared. This is one of your scratch builds, is that correct, Richard?
Yeah, I built that for a guy in America. We nicknamed it the Squirrel. It's called the Kestrel.
Right. Because am I right in thinking this appeared in an episode of Space 1999 in the second season?
It never appeared in an episode. It was concept design
okay.
by a chap in America.
Okay.
And he made a 1/72 scale one of it, which is using the old MPC kit.
Right.
And my friend said to me, he says, can you build me one? But can you build me one in scale with the 22-inch Eagles done by round 2? So what you see there is the round 2 nose, the actual spine from a round 2 Eagle, and the engine section. But luckily I had lots of spare engines and bits and bobs because I built quite a lot of round 2 Eagles, and a lot of the customers don't want the plastic engines, they want turned aluminium engines. So I've got spare engines, I've got spare bits and bobs, so it's a case of working the shape out and putting the thing together.
I mean, so in terms of sort of I don't want to get into kind of prices you charge people, but in terms of costings for materials for you and man hours time, what sort of money are we talking at just for you to build it and paint it?
I mean, end of the day, you'd be looking a model like that. These kits cost. So I'd obviously work from the basis of I've got nothing. So I've got to work on. So I need a round 2 Eagle, which can go over £100.
Yeah.
Then I've got a lighting kit inside that. So that could be another £30. And then obviously the sheet plasticard that I go to a trade firm that do me massive A1 sheets of plasticard. So they can work out at £20 a sheet, dependent on what thickness I go with. So, and then you're talking paint as well. So it's Halford's 10 quid, just under £10 a tin. So you're racking up quite a bit of money already. Then you've got to work out the man hours to actually put the thing together, which could take a month.
And this is another one of yours.
That is a rework I did of Skydiver. Originally, this was made. The original of this kit was made by our good friend right at the bottom, Mr. Rob.
Mr. Denham. Yeah, he was holding up a version
he actually
of it.
designed that, and I got this from a customer. Brought it to me. It was damaged, and he said, "It's damaged. Could you fix it? Can you repaint it the correct colours?" So it was a case of sorting it out, fixing the problems, removing some of the kit bits on it that were wrong, and put the correct ones on, and paint it all up, and sent it away to the customer.
I take it that you can't separate the front
Yes,
part
you
off.
can.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you would be able to lift that bit off the front stand and.
Yeah.
Because I know 21st Century Toys did a die-cast version of this that was really nice, and I could have picked it up for peanuts at Model Zone, and when I went back to get it, it had gone.
I mean, originally I said to the customer, "Do you really want me to actually have this separate? Because it'd be a lot easier if it was just one piece." And he was adamant I wanted to separate. I went, "Oh, okay, fine. We'll find a way to fix this little problem." And it wasn't a little problem; it's a big problem, but we fixed it. That's what I do: problem solving.
Very good. So going to Paul, working my way round again. So Paul, to make the shadow that you've got behind you there.
Yeah.
What sort of time? What kind of hours are we looking at for that? And guys in chat, I have seen your questions, and I am going to get to those. So don't worry, and you can keep putting them in there. I'll get to them shortly.
It's time-wise, it's months. I don't build models full time. I've got a normal job, shall we say? So these are just built evenings, weekends. So time-wise, it's months. And the problem is sometimes when it takes that long to build a model, you do get a bit bored with it. So you'll get so far, and then you think, "Oh, I really don't want to do that," and then you'll start another model, and then you'll probably come back to that one and do another little bit, and then you'll get bored again, and then you'll start and do another model.
Do you want to pan your camera a little bit so we can just see it in a bit more detail, and maybe one or two? You've got a couple there on the bench, I know. So that. What is that? About 2 feet long? That one?
It's just a shade under 2 foot long. Yeah.
And does it have quite a bit of weight to it? Is it quite a heavy model?
That is heavy. Yeah. It's all sheet plastic, and there's a lot of ribbing inside to give it strength. So the main material I use when I'm building my models is 2mm. High impact polystyrene sheet, so it's
right.
The very kind of heavy duty plastic sheet.
Yeah. God, the detail on that is immense. Looks like Suzette's car engine at the back there.
Yeah, and difficult trying to do it with the camera.
That's right. I appreciate the effort there.
So radar dish.
So from start to finish, that took you how long?
This one probably took me about 18 months, I would imagine.
18 months, really?
Yeah, it was
bloody hell.
Just putting it down, starting it, getting bored, and then starting again.
Wow, just as well it wasn't needed for the pandemic.
Yeah. It's one. I dare say, if I was to give up the day job, you'd probably take a month to do something.
Okay, if you sat down and okay, got you. Rob, do you want to turning to you? Do you want to show us one of your models that you've got to hand, whichever one you like? I don't really mind. I know you've got a fair bit of Gerry Anderson stuff. We don't have to be limited to Gerry Anderson stuff, but certainly that'll be a big thrust of the evening. Oh, so is that a big Thunderbird One, or are you just pleased to see us? I think it is a Thunderbird One.
It's a 25 3D printed Thunderbird One. This took me about 4 weeks to build, or thereabouts.
Wow. Do the wings fold out on that?
The wings don't fold out on this model because a problem with the 3D printing was that once I'd applied paint to the wings, it was very
Yeah.
difficult to open the wings in and out. They were actually snagging the body. So I left this one as wings closed. The model was reprinted with a slimmer wing. And that version, the wings open and close, but I haven't started that one yet because for the group, I was building the countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2 to 1.
And how many hours? How many hours would that take to paint that one?
The Thunderbird One.
Yeah.
The large Thunderbird One, I probably spent the best part of a week painting that.
Right.
The smaller models, it's okay. I've got a little helper here. Could you pass me C4? Okay.
got an
Here comes
assistant.
Thunderbird 4.
It's like Blue Peter. Here's one I made earlier.
Yeah.
Blue Peter, here's one I...
Oh.
So this is an AIP model.
Right.
It's been reissued from Aoshima, from Imai. It's a superb model, and that took me 10 days to build. But again, painting that model, that was a cheat, because a technique that I use is to actually pin wash the model to enhance the detail. And then once the detail is enhanced, the actual overcoat of paint that I apply, the yellow, is a technique that I call feathering. And you only put a very slight amount of paint on. Then that gets sealed with varnish, and then you move on to the next stage. So those are the easier models to build and to paint.
Well, they're quite iconic as well, so there's not a lot of room for maneuver in terms of like varying the colours. No one wants to see a Thunderbird 4 in camo green. What would you? We got a question here from Chris Dye. What would the guest say is the best paint brand for modelers? So, Rob, while we're still on you, what brand of paints do you use for yours? I'll get each guest to answer that.
If the model is a large model, I use high coat paint, which I apply via a rattle can. If I'm using an airbrush, and I use two styles of airbrush, one's more of an air gun, the other one is specifically an airbrush for detail painting. I always use Tamiya paint, always. And there's a trick. There's a trick to Tamiya paint, and the trick is that if you open the jar of paint, you top it up to about 3 millimeters shy of the brim, mix the paint, you will never ever get a clog in your airbrush.
And you use that you use airbrushing for all your model painting as well.
Yes. So I use on the larger models. I use rattle cans, or people call them spray tins. And those are readily available from different brand stores. But I purchase a brand off of the internet called High Coat. I've just found it to be the paint for me.
Okay.
Some paint don't work for some people. So it's one of those. You need to find what works for you as an individual. And then if you stick with that, you make less mistakes.
And also what works for the model that you're building or attempting to replicate, if it is a replication. What about you, Richard? What brands do you use?
Well, basically, if I'm doing a big studio model, then I usually, if it's just like a base color, I usually go to Halfords. And if I can get a close enough color in rattle can. If I can't, I've got a blokes down in Wigan car paints. They are really clever. They know their colors because they deal with classic cars, and a lot of the actual models from the Anderson universe were built in the 60s. And we can research the color back and find out what color it was. When it comes to doing close-up work, finishing on a model, I obviously use the airbrush, and I use Vallejo acrylic paint. I don't like using any enamels. I prefer to use acrylics. and that it just works for me. Really, I mean, I've tried high coat. I found it a little bit too thin for my liking, but with the stuff from Halfords, I've had no issues with it. And also, if you've got a little area that you've missed, you can just pour it in, well, spray it into the tin lid, and then just pour it into your airbrush, and it'll be fine. It'll just flow easy, really.
So something like this.
You mean this?
That's a Cylon Raider. Oh yeah, well let's see the real thing.
Yeah.
There we go. Hang on, I'll just make you go massive again. As the actress say to the bishop. There we go. Oh yeah, very nice.
That is a 3D printed resin and PLA print. The original file is done by Gambody, who I'm associated with, and they have basically done this print of the Cylon Raider. The Viper's also a Gambody file, and this was basically painted with. Also, I use Humbrol acrylics, which is there's a rattle can they use. It's called polished steel. So this modeler is primed using standard primer, Halfords primer, on a rattle can, and then overspray black, and then from overspraying it black, then I overspray it with this metal coat. And the great thing about the metal coat is when you paint the actual model and let the model dry, it only takes, in this weather, it takes an hour, if that. You can get a cloth and you can go over the model, and it polishes the model so it actually looks like metal. And then obviously when that's done, I masked off certain areas and using them with Vallejo colours, different silvers and metals. I used targeted areas. I'll do this area and that area. And then to finish the model off, I basically just went over the airbrush with a very dark grey and just put weathering into it, just darken it off. So you get that kind of look. So how light hits it, you get different variations and shades.
Yeah, I noticed that from the still. I think in my day that would have been an awful lot of Citadel gunmetal grey or whatever was available back then. Same question to you, Paul. Any preference on your types of paints?
Well, one of the main reasons I like modelling Anderson stuff is the paint jobs on the whole are pretty simple. I think probably the most complex one was a skydiver, again, one of Bob's kits a long time ago. That was a hard paint job trying to get all the different coloured panels in. But most of the models I've got here are one colour.
Do you want to show us the second one? I know you've got a few lined up there.
Well, we've got the radar dish behind. That was basically white and yellow with a kind of a dirty grey for the base.
Yeah.
And then the next one here is the Captain Scarlett Angel Carrier.
Yeah.
That was, well, as you can see, it's just yellow with some red pinstriping and some black pinstriping, and the silver detailing is just chrome tape.
Again, I mean, it's one of the more obscure vehicles, and you don't get people modelling those. But it's kind of nice to see the more obscure stuff.
Yeah, no,
getting made.
Yeah, I do like to build the stuff that no one else does.
Yeah, no, indeed. And show us the red one there.
That's the Frostline defence truck from Captain Scarlett. Again, a nice big red cab and body. I'll just shift this one out of the way so we can see. And then,
with the original version of that, been a rebuild from Eddie, what's his name's truck from the Thunderbirds episode where it's trapped on.
No, this would have been a complete scratch build.
Right. Because I know they did do that a lot with the models. They would recannibalize them and.
Yeah. Well, the other nice thing with this one is a lot of that model is made up of Johnny Express toy parts.
Right.
it was an American toy brand that I never saw as a kid over here. But the cab from the Frostline Defences, the cab from the Johnny Express truck that's just been modified slightly, and then the back of that model is the dumper truck from the same range of toys, turned upside down and stuck on the back with a few modifications. So
Right.
to scratch build it, it was fairly easy but expensive because most of the Johnny Express parts have to come from America. So you're paying crazy postage prices and then the import duties. And then I'll just show you these little tracks. I don't know whether you can you see the tracks?
We can see them, the caterpillar tracks. Yeah.
They come from an old Japanese tin toy tank. When I first started doing Anderson modelling, you could pick these things up off eBay if you were lucky for £4 or £5 a go. Unfortunately, if you're lucky now, you have to add a 0 onto that to get one. And that model, I think I probably needed about 10 of those tanks to provide me enough tracks to get it right.
No, indeed. So another question here from Jimbo. What's the most difficult model that you've ever built? So, Rob, that question to you first, and anyone in particular that was a real challenge?
This wasn't a model from the Underverse. This was a model that I was commissioned to build of the 32-inch Nautilus from the Disney movie. And that entailed trying to get a rust effect. And not being really into tank armour and rust painting, I ended up applying different colours, rust colours, mixed gold, browns, bronzes, and the model, to finish the model, ended up with the pre-shading and then doing dust coating at the end. And what I called a rivet count, I actually highlighted every rivet on the boat. It ended up with layers of somewhere between 14 to 16 layers.
So just for anyone who can't remember what we're talking about, I think I've got this right. We're talking this on the right here. That's the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Is that the ship you mean?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So you built, sorry, how large was it, the model that you built?
The model was 32 inches long.
Right, okay.
Just over 32. Just to do the pre-shading, because the hull of the submarine isn't a cylinder. It's actually I think it's hexagonal. And to actually pre-shade each section of the submarine took an hour. So you're talking 6 hours to actually do the pre-shading. And then there were all of the other layers to go on top of that.
Yeah, I mean,
very
that's
happy with the finished result.
I don't doubt it. I mean, that's the thing I've noticed about you guys. You're very dedicated to getting a particular look. I mean, I don't know if there's a term for it in artistic terms in the way that Alan Partridge calls his clothing collection sports casual, but it's like the level of detail is quite immense.
Well, the problem
I've used the term, and it was Eldon Terrell, and when he was talking about Rachel, the new Nexus 6 type android skin job replicant, it was more human than human. The term that I use is more real than real. And to get a model, irrespective of scale, to look realistic, we as modelers have to go to extreme terms to reach those levels.
Yeah.
And it
And
sometimes it can be difficult.
Paul, go on. You were going to add something there.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's so difficult now because of the internet. All three of us here, we all show our stuff at various stages of being built, and there's so many people out there who are as good as us, and we need to convince them that we've done a good job. So there's loads of critics out there, so you've got to be on the top of your game to get these other modelers to give you a nod and say, yeah, that was a good job.
Right. I mean, who would you say is the person that's at the top of their game that you would look for that nod for them, Paul?
There's loads of guys out there. Yeah, a chap called Dave Sissons, a guy called Chris Trice. There's another guy called Chris Potter who makes brilliant models. Another chap called Hilton Fitzsimmons. He's worked on the recent Thunderbirds episodes that have just been produced by Century 21. Yeah, there's too many to name. There's loads of guys out there.
Right. Did you mean the special anniversary episodes?
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to track those down because I know that was like the whole thing was like a sort of Kickstarter thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that was brilliant. I was lucky. I got invited to go along and help on for one day, and it was a great experience. Yeah, got to see stuff being blown up and actually got to make a couple of bits.
Oh, right.
For one of the episodes, so that was really cool.
Does that mean your name appear in the credits under Barry Gray's then? For that?
No, unfortunately, no, because I wasn't there long enough. Yeah, if I'd been there for a week or so, I might have got a little credit. But
I'm sure it was just an amazing experience just to be there for the day.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, and another guy who I've not mentioned. Yeah, there's another guy called Mummus, a guy who produces wonderful little kits, Bill Oram. Yeah, there's a whole. Yeah, there's a million guys out there that produce stuff as good as us, and you know they kind of go under the radar sometimes.
Well, it's good that you've name dropped a few of them now, and long may they continue because it is a dying art form. I mean, you do see people modelling things with their wargaming and stuff. Oh, we've lost Suzette for a sec. I'm sure she'll pop back in a bit, but you know, they're mainly building Warhammer bits and pieces, not stuff to this skill level, and having miniatures in films is getting rarer and rarer because people use CGI. I think because they have a concept that it's cheaper. I don't think it's better. I just rewatched all of the second Star Wars trilogy. And the battle scenes and stuff in that, they look awful because really not aged well because the technology is advanced so much then. But all of the vehicles, they look so clean. And one of the reasons I hated the Thunderbirds live action movie was the vehicles in them, the Thunderbird vehicles, apart from some of the redesigns I didn't like too much, but the vehicles themselves had no weight to them in the shots. Yeah. They felt like they were feathers, and there was no grime. They looked too clean.
Yeah.
Anyway, we won't talk about that film because there's nothing good to say about it apart from the guy that played Parker. And moving on. So, Richard, same question to you. What's the most? I mean, you've built a vast range of these things. What's the most?
I've built so many stuff. It's ridiculous. I've just emailed you one of the builds. I forgot to add it.
All right, let me check that.
So check now, the Joe 90 car. If we talk Anderson, I've just emailed you 3 images. The original, the actual kit itself was designed by. Oh, blimey! He'll kill me if I don't get his name right.
That's Pete Hutton, I think you're talking about.
That's it, Pete Hutton.
Thank God for Paul Gray. That'll be something.
Peter's there going, you forgot my blooming name. It gives you what you need, but there's a lot of scratch building involved, and we rebuilt the engine. We re-scratch built the engine. We had the wheels turned in aluminium, and also the tires. They were cast for us by Mooncrest models. But it's all lit up. The wings came out. The fins opened up. The rear wheels retracted. Sadly, we couldn't do the retraction of the front wheels. But as Anderson vehicles go, that was a challenge. Not just getting the actual look, getting the colour and everything about it. I scratch built the 2 figures of Joe and his dad using Anakin Skywalker Star Wars figure and a Luke Skywalker Star Wars figure.
And that's interesting. So that gives us an idea of the scale of the cockpit of that. Then, if it's got a Star Wars figure inside,
they're both Star Wars figures involved. Yeah, she's big. She is big.
Do the wings come out on this one?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
It had a full mechanism inside, so when you pulled one wing, the other wing would open.
Nice. So, and actually, Joe 90, I think, is the first show I remember watching. That maybe it was being rebroadcast at the time. Certainly wasn't born when it first came out, but
I love Joe 90.
Yeah, because I just always remember thinking, why is that kid going into a ginormous egg whisk? And we had one in the kitchen, and I tried putting a toy figure in it.
It don't work.
It didn't give him superpowers. It decapitated him, so it wasn't too successful. This might be a good question for you, Richard, from Andy Davidson, who clearly is a Captain Scarlett fan. What are some of the weathering techniques you guys use? Sort of
right. Well, weathering wise, I try to use what the guys used in the show. So they were using a lot of pastels because this is before the days of airbrush.
Right.
So they used to crumple down, and I still do it. You basically just go to your local art supplies and get some soft pastels and just a little cup and scrape the color you want. So say, for instance, you're doing a vehicle that you need some dark shading on. So what I do is I get hold of, say, a very dark brown, a burnt umber, or just a black, and scrape it into a little pot, and then just get hold of a graphite, because you can get graphite chunks, and scrape a bit of graphite into it as well, and use a big brush that's totally dry, it's had no water on it, and you're not scared of really destroying it, and then just pick an area where you think the dirt is, and then use that like you're putting paint on. And then pour a coat of lacquer over the top, and then do it again, so you get the build up what you want. Sometimes you can go over a piece of masking tape, just mask off an area, and then use it on the corners, so that gives you where dirt is collected. Besides that, I use the airbrush now. But what I say to people is, the airbrush is just a tool. The pasteling is just a tool. So don't go for one or the other. Use them both. Sometimes that might work better for one job. Another job might work better for the other.
So is it best to be equipped in all the different knowledges that you?
The thing I've learned is you can never stop learning. So somebody will say to me, Rob might say to me, why don't you try this? So that's a new technique to try. And you see, oh, that works for me. And then you might find a different way of doing something. And you go, oh, that actually, if I do it this way, this seems to work better for me. But no, it's literally, you never stop learning, and just try new things. Don't be scared of trying a new technique, because the result you get might be quite shocking. And you might, actually, that really works well. That saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Rich is right there. When I first started doing my scratch builds, to weather the models, I started off using powder paints. I had a pot of black powder paint and a pot of brown powder paint, and just with a short brush would just brush it onto the areas of the model to give it that weathered look. And if I wanted for say like areas on wheels or tires where you want it a bit thicker, you just keep just applying it and build it up in layers, and then matte varnish it to keep it all in place. And then another friend of mine who Rob knows, a guy called Toby Chamberlain, he taught me one of the methods that they used to panel on Thunderbird One. So you'd get a piece of masking tape, you'd get a soft pencil and just rub the pencil up and down along the edge of the masking tape. So you build up a nice layer of lead on the masking tape. You'd then lay the masking tape onto the model. You'd get a sweaty finger and then just rub your finger down from where you put the lead onto the model and then pull the masking tape away. You leave a nice crisp straight line and a smear of black coming away from it. So yeah, that was a great way of getting panel lines, and they're two really cheap ways of doing it. An airbrush, I'll be honest, that scared me for a long time, and I eventually bit the bullet and bought one, and now that's my go-to way for doing most of my weathering. But I still use those two other methods because they're as cheap as chips.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to throw this question for Bob. I assume he means Rob. So, Rob, I'm guessing you've got a Thunderbird 2 there that you might be able to hold up for the purposes of this. If your assistant is still on hand to pass you these items. Yeah, I know that they, with Thunderbirds, I remember reading an interview, I forget who it was, but it was somebody who was in charge of building the models. And the original Thunderbird 2 for the first season, somehow it got destroyed. I don't know what happened to it, but it got destroyed. And they made 6 episodes for the next season, which is when you got the different actor doing Virgil's voice. And they said that they could never get the shape of the ship quite exactly the same. And the color, there's a slight variation on the color as well. And the model, they could never get the model exactly the same. They couldn't quite match the shape. And I imagine back then that was a bit tricky. But so yeah, show us your modeler there, Rob, and maybe talk about the color.
The story of the Thunderbird 2 was the version that was shot down by the Sentinel, and they had to burn the model on the runway. That got damaged beyond repair. So when they got round to building another version, Gerry just wasn't happy with it. But they had to carry on with it. But I've got 2 versions here. This one is a kind of a little bit before. So this has been painted the green. Okay. That's the base colour that I used. And this one is the virtual finished version. Same model, but now that's been deckled and it's been weathered and it's been filtered. So the techniques that I use for weathering are, again, airbrushing, pastel shading, and then once I've finished, I then use a slightly lighter colour, and I will actually filter the model so that you kind of fade away some of the weathering. Because when you're using a studio model and you've got the lighting hitting the model, that will absolutely obliterate whatever weathering you've applied. Whereas if you're looking at a normal model and you're looking at it under daylight conditions, or you're at a model show, then what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
If you feel that the weathering's too heavy, I say turn the lighting up. If the weathering isn't enough, sorry, I say if the weathering is too heavy, turn the lighting up. If the weathering's not enough, turn the lighting down.
What color of paint did you use for Thunderbird 2 specifically? I've got mine here actually. I'll grab it quickly.
Yeah, that's another difficult question because the Anderson fans that are out there will always be a debate about the colour of these vehicles. So
yeah, I know Thunderbird 3, some people think it's redder, some people think it's more orange. I prefer the more orange colour, I have to admit.
Well, it gets down to the argument where the colour that was used was a Peugeot Talbot colour called Seville Orange. Yeah, I kind of mix the colours for my models. So I'll start off with a green. Taking Thunderbird 2, if I think it looks too dark, I'll just mix a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow, brighten it up. That'll be the base coat for the model. Remember, each time you go through a different pass or you add a different technique, whether it be weathering or whether it be varnishing, and that would be to seal your previous work. You'll be sealing again to apply decals. You'll be sealing again to actually finish the model off. I mix even a lighter colour and then just very, very lightly feather the model so it just brightens it up a little bit. So if the lighting conditions change, the model kind of looks the same.
This one was painted in 1992, so I couldn't tell you what techniques or paint I used, I'm afraid, because it was so long ago. The pod used to drop out, but it's been like this for so long, it's actually stuck. So I daren't push it out because I might not get it back in again.
You'll break it.
That's what
she's... And I mean, part of the undercarriage has already gone. So one of this wheel here is damaged, and actually when you rest it, it retracts up inside. So it kind of, when it sits on the top, it looks like it's already been hit by one of the missiles from the guy in the pyramid. But I've still got the box for it. You see, I didn't throw the box away.
Should have kept it in the box.
Let me grab the box for it because it's on the shelf right here. So the one I just showed everybody, that's this kit.
I've got a few of those.
I think they're quite hard to get now, aren't they? Is that right?
You can still, if you go on eBay, you can still pick them up. I mean, the new IMI ones that have been released, they're more the new one. It's smaller, like what Rob's just showed, but it's a bit smaller than that one. But it's more of a correct shape. It's all about the shape more than anything else.
Yeah, because talking of our good friend, the Arthur Daly of model shops, Tony, who used to own Comet Miniatures, he had the remote control one. Was it from Takara that had the legs would go down? And I really wanted to get it, and it was a toss up between buying that or getting Thunderbird 3, which is up there. And Thunderbird 3 was always my favorite, so Thunderbird 3 won out, and I really want that one, but they go for like 500-600 quid now. Those,
yeah, the Takara ones they do sell for good money because the shape is brilliant. It's a beautiful shape. The shape is bang on.
It's a big model as well, isn't
big,
it?
Yes, yeah. I'd say I've repainted 2 of them
because I've got the vehicles for it that are to scale with that model that come out.
Yeah, they're nice. They are.
Yeah, they're really good, and I've even got the remote control thing that comes with it that you can use as well. So I've got all of the stuff to go with it, but not the Thunderbird 2 in that scale.
So you build it, and then you can operate them as well. Some of them.
Yeah.
Or they just.
Yes.
Some of us go to great lengths. There's a guy I mentioned earlier called Mummus. He's very into his remote control. He's built some amazing Shado mobiles and fitted them out with a sound box. So he pushes the button and the engine starts, and it sounds like a tank. He makes it move. He's got guns firing on the roof. Some people go to all manner of lengths to make them really impressive models. I've got to say, I'm very much a stick it on the shelf kind of guy. So none of mine are remote controlled, but I do like the idea of being able to whiz one round the lounge floor and shoot rockets at someone.
Yeah.
There's a question there you can see, and then I'm going to mute myself because I need to have a quick conversation. Do you fellas prefer building to an existing design or designing your own models? Paul, why don't you take that one first, and I'll be right back with you guys.
I'll be perfectly honest. I've never attempted to build one of my own designs. I've been quite tempted to do a modern version of Skydiver because I think it's a really cool craft, but I will design mine as closely to the studio miniatures as possible. I also like to build them studio scale, so that makes them really big, and you can get all the detailing that you saw on the television shows, which I think is really important. If you try and go too small, you miss out on a lot of detail, and for my mind, they don't look as impressive. So I will always try and stick to the original specs as closely as I can.
Yeah, it's the joy, isn't it, in a sense? So, but ask Rob now. Do you prefer to build your own or existing designs?
I am one preferring existing designs because these are the models that I grew up with. If it wasn't Gerry Anderson, Irwin Allen. If it wasn't Irwin Allen, it was Gene Roddenberry. And then we move on to the likes of Steven Spielberg. And I think the big guy has got to be Mr. Lucas for Star Wars. And I just prefer building the originals. I've tried to redesign things, but the problem with redesigning things is that somebody will always just jump out and say, I don't think it'd look like that. I think this is wrong. I think that's wrong. So I'd rather just build stuff that everybody accepts. As far as the redesigning, maybe someday. I'm just enjoying myself building the models that I build, and I have done for donkey's years.
Yeah. There's not enough time. It takes long enough to build the models that we're doing.
Right.
I think to build a new design, that's taking too much time away from building what we really like doing.
Yeah.
There was someone that built something that I can't remember what it was, whether it was a truck or some kind of super vehicle that they said this would exist in the Gerry Anderson world, and I think it was on your forum, Rob, and it was really good. It fitted. It looked right. You know, it looked like that could have been a guest vehicle. I can't remember for the life of me what it was. So it's nice to see people taking risks and doing those occasionally. I get why people don't, but I quite like it when people do. I quite like to imagine that in an episode that didn't get made. You know,
right? If you choose the right base materials, you can make a vehicle that it would fit in that universe. If you remember the Swinton car insurance advert, where, they had a truck that crashed. I can't remember what it crashed into now, but they used the Johnny Express wheels on that truck that they used on probably 90% of all the trucks that they ever made in Captain Scarlett. So it had that feel that it belonged in that universe, although it wasn't from that universe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Suze, go on. You wanted to ask?
Sorry, and I was going to say, Richard, to ask him the question that Luke asked about
designed anything of your own?
Yeah.
A few. Quite a few. I mean, if you go on, I sent you the email on, there's a Space Precinct Aqua car.
Yes, I think I have that ready to share. Let me get that up on screen.
That's just for a start for 10. That was a proposed design for second season of Space Precinct that never happened. And I was talking to Steve Begg, about it, who was the main effects guy down on that. And
he's a good friend of mine, and I'm hoping to get him on the channel.
Well, I'm hoping to see him this weekend.
Oh, well,
this Sunday.
yeah, there you go.
Down at Small Space. And basically, I asked him about this vehicle, and he says, well, it was a design I was toying with for a second season, that the back end would be removed, and then an aqua unit would put on there, so we could do some episodes underwater. But obviously, we didn't get the budget for a second season. So I just asked him some ideas, and we used the design drawings, and I came up with that for the aqua sprite, and then we discussed about colors, etc. And that's where we got the finished version. I mean, I'm going to do a bigger studio scale version of it if I can, very, very soon when I get time. As everything, when you're doing jobs for customers all the time, it's trying to fit your own bits and bobs in is a bit harder. Sure. I worked on the new K9 show that is still in pre-production, and I got a lot of input on how we were going to design the new dog, and changing things, altering things, seeing what would work. It's always scary when you actually end up doing something new for screen, or for a customer, that man, because end of the day, if it doesn't exist, then you've got to work out the colors, what looks right, what works right, because you might do something and just think, oh, that looks rubbish. That just looks horrid. It doesn't look right on the model. So you end up ripping all the thing out and remaking it. Same goes with painting the model as well. I mean, I worked on Meek Sheet, the Meek Sheet, with the guys that actually did the original Thunderbird 65, the guys in Canada. And this vehicle was meant to look a combination of a tractor, a rocket ship, and it had the wings back to front like Thunderbird 2. And it had to have like a grill, the top of it was a tractor and everything. Well, the thing about it was we were working on that, and they had the design locked. So I was working from the design. But when it came to color, we did the red, and it was and I painted it, and they said, right, we like that. Can you add more? I said, what more do you want? And so, could you put a bit more extra color on it, a bit of stripes or something like that, to kind of keep it in the feel of a kind of a Thunderbirds vehicle, but on this new puppet show. So I did all that, and then they were happy with that. And then it's kind of back to the weathering situation. It was right, and I weathered it with with pastels originally, and they went, no, needs to be darker. So the airbrush came out, and I did greys. Went, no, it needs to be darker. And I literally said, how dark do you want this? Because this ship was red. I said, how dark do you want it? It's really, really dark. To the point where there was areas that were just black. But when you see it on the screen, it looks fine. And I was quite shocked how much can be removed through lighting.
Yeah. I mean, this ship here, that's the one that's on the table behind you. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Can we see that a bit closer? Is it too heavy for you to lift up?
She's big. She's a big girl. Hang on.
No.
Oh, dear. 1 second.
Is the main body of that resin or?
This is another 3D printed file.
Okay.
From Gambody. And it took about 6 weeks to print, maybe a little bit longer. But parts of it are resin as well.
So I'm a little bit dumb on the 3D printer thing. Does that mean your printer is going non-stop for 6 weeks?
Yeah, basically.
Blimey. Okay.
And like I say, it comes when you print something. It's got all print lines on it, so you have to sand it and sand it and sand it.
Right.
And it takes a lot of work just to get that nice smooth finish. But what we did with this one, we fitted inside it. I think there's one of the images I've sent you is inside the cockpit, and you can actually see an LED display, which we actually have got, a working LED display in the actual cockpit of the radar dish from the big 1-to-1 prop that they used on the set of Battlestar Galactica. and I found a company in America that actually do these miniature little screens. And this screen is, and they actually happen to have the Battlestar Galactica scanner. It was like £80 plus shipping and extra. So I think I'll have one of those to put in the big girl. So.
That was quite handy. And I mean, is that for you, just for your personal collection, or is somebody?
What I normally do is, because I do so many jobs, I like to have the odd job that is mine that I can take to shows, like I'm going Small Space this weekend, just to show off my work. But normally I try and rotate a job, so I'll be keeping her for like 3 years, and then I'll sell her, and then I'll make something new. You've got pictures of Serenity, I think, on there.
Yeah, I've got them. I've got them lined up. Actually, I mean, it must be like jilting a girlfriend, getting rid of them. That
I have an agreement with my wife, which is literally we sell off one, but it gets replaced with one. And my wife loves planes, so this is a replacement for the Sky One that's gone. That's a 5 foot long Serenity, and it's almost the same size as the studio one that was used in the actual film.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic
nearly finished.
Model.
It's not far off finished. We're just going to sort out some wiring. I mean, I've got a bit of it actually to hand. If you can grab it.
Yeah.
If I can get it.
And Rob, I'll be coming to you next. So have a model ready.
Yeah.
This is just a small part of it. This gives you an idea how big she is. That is the hangar bay.
Bloody hell.
And and it's got the actual figures in there from, I don't even see it in there.
Yeah.
And there's no 3D printing in that.
Sorry, hold that up for a second longer, Richard. I'll just make you large screen there. Oh yeah, very nice. That's exactly as it was. God,
and to do them steps at the back was a pain up the backside, but you know, if it's in the show, you've got to make it. So
man. I mean, you know, if my dad built all this stuff, I'd be wanting to play with it with my toy soldiers when I was a kid all the time. It'd be like that. You'd have to keep it in a locked room.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, again, that's not a specific commission. You're going to build that.
That I like to do at least 2 big jobs that are mine. And
right.
I've been working on her for 3 years. She took a year to print.
It's just. I mean, the 3D printing obviously makes things a lot easier.
It helps a lot, but people think it just comes off the printer.
Yeah,
and it's done, and then you just paint it.
No, I'm aware that's not the case.
I can be spending as much work on a scratch build than I can with a 3D printed piece, because I've got to get rid of all them print lines, and then sometimes where you've got a join, I have to make that join vanish by either putting an extra panel in on it, filling it, blending it all in. It's not a 2-minute job. I mean, and then, like I say, with Serenity, she's covered in kit bits as well to actually give it that look, because we couldn't print half the bits at the time because it's before resin printers.
So thank you from Luke there for answering his question. Just before I go to Rob, just an example of 3D printing. So these are 1/32 miniatures from the new Dune movie. Yeah. I didn't print these. Somebody brought them along.
That's resin printing, yeah.
Yeah, and because these are plastic.
Yeah.
Because my friend is in that film, I was going to get someone who was better at painting than me to somehow.
Is that you mean the new Dune film?
Yeah, that's right. These are from the new Dune, and I was going to get somebody who's better at painting than me to try and convert this figure into my friend who's in the film, so I can give it to her and have the two of them fighting on a stand like that. I think I need to pass these to Rob anyway. But I was amazed at the detail on them. You know, for a 3D print, it's amazing. Go on, Sue.
So it's just because I'm interested. My friend's partner works with models, but he tried to explain 3D printing to me. And one of the things I wanted to know is, does it create tiny pieces that are intricate, or do you have to?
It depends what you like. When I start a project, because I've got a really good guy called Chris Thompson in Belfast who does a lot of my design work. So, say for instance, I get a job in, and they give me like a 3D drawings, or they'll give me like schematics for a design of a ship or something like that. I can send that over to Chris, and he will design the ship. When it comes to printing it, I always tell Chris two things. If we are working on, say, for instance, a ship body, so it's just shape, then I say we need to print it in PLA or ABS. With those, you can, and it prints really fine print lines. They're really very, very small. But the thing about it is, it's good for doing. I mean, she's PLA, but some of the sections we printed are resin, because the resin you can get better detail than the PLA, because obviously it's just how it forms, and it just forms a lot better. Resin printing is more expensive than PLA printing, but if we can find a way around to just use the PLA for a certain job and then use the resin for all the detailed sections, that's the best way I like to do it.
Thank you.
But I'll still have to scratch build stuff. There'll probably be no interior, so I'll have to scratch build an interior, scratch build the engine section, detail it up. So it doesn't end when it's just come off the printer. There's a lot of work involved.
If I win that Euro rollover next this Friday, then Richard, I'll be on the phone to you for a few commissions. Put in the new room, in the new house. Just going to Rob. Rob, I mean, do you prefer kits or scratch builds? And have you got an example of each you could show us, perhaps? That's a question from Phil Jones.
I prefer now kits, but in the days of old, I scratch built the 3-foot skydiver. I partially scratch built the 3-foot model of Stingray, but now I just prefer painting. I prefer the painting and minimal assembly. I may go back to scratch building at some point, but this is a model that I built over 30 years ago. I don't know whether you can see that properly.
We can. Yeah, so this is a Robocop, and this is a scratch build. This is not a kit.
No, the figurine is a kit. The scratch built part was the pavement and the base.
Oh, okay, got you. Sorry. Okay, and which company made that particular piece? The kit?
Well, that was a mixture. It was a mixture of two kits. It was the Horizon body, and it was a Japanese company that I used the head for because I thought the likeness was pretty much like Peter Weller that played Robocop.
Yeah.
Very, very nice piece. This piece, we've been talking about 3D printing.
Yeah.
I'm also into, like I said, martial arts and Bruce Lee. I don't know whether you can see the likeness there of Mr. Norris.
Move it to your right slightly. That's your there you go. Wicked. He looks rather ghostly.
Well, again, when these things are printed, they'll be printed in a specific colour. So what I tend to do is pin wash the model, and then I just give it a very light overshadow of a Tamiya colour called buff. And what that'll do, it will draw all the detail out. So when you come to paint the figure, you can see exactly where you've got to apply the paint, undertones, highlights, undershades, dry brushing. This is another 3D printed model. And this one is of Rutger Hauer from Blade Runner.
Yeah, not painted yet.
Not painted.
Fantastic. No.
The head has been resin printed, and the body is PLA.
That's one of the most iconic characters of cinema history, and what a shame it was to lose the actor.
Absolutely fantastic.
I'm going to ask you about another model of yours. I think this is Gerry Anderson holding a Stingray replica that you built. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the one. I was commissioned by Tony James of Comet Miniatures to build this 3-foot model of Stingray for his shop. But I had an opportunity back then. I was invited to display both the Stingray and the Skydiver at Wolverhampton Art Gallery in 1992. So I had a really good chat with Tony. He released the Skydiver for me, and he released the Stingray. And the photograph of Gerry would have been outside Wolverhampton Art Gallery for a press shoot, and that had been back in 1992.
And I think these ones here of yours, they would have all been made for the same purpose, kind of promotional, because I think that's your same model in these are various fan models. There's your name credited there. So that's one of your shadows as well.
No, the Skydiver's mine, the Stingray is mine. The Shadow Mobile was built by a fantastic model maker by the name of Kevin Pedley. Now, he was a machinist, and he carried on to work for Peter Waterman, and he used to build locomotives that actually worked. The puppet of X20, that was built by the guy that organised the art gallery exhibition, and his name was David Finchett.
Right, okay. And then here...
It's going back to when I was a young man.
Well, yeah. And don't we all wish we were still?
If you have it, I did send you a video of a radio controlled SPV working. Yes,
I'll see if I can find it. But you did send me about 5,000 pictures and videos, which I'm still trying to sift through. Am I right in thinking this would be a base mold for a Thunderbird 3? Is that correct?
That's correct. This model. This is old school modelling. Now, the actual master would have been made out of an abundance of materials, wood, and then wherever the material is subject to be damaged, the trick method is to cover the model with sellotape. And
is this the model you're looking for?
Yeah, well, and once again, here's one we made earlier. I have a feeling this is going to be like that scene with Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood in that gangster film where they all start pulling out slightly bigger and bigger guns. Yeah, that's the one. And that I'm assuming at some point that's going to be built into a massive Thunderbird 3.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of scratch building to do. I've got this, and I've got the engines.
Well, again, if I win the lottery on Friday, it's good to know you've got the body for me already. Excellent. Fantastic. I'm conscious of. Well, we've nearly been going for 90 minutes, and I'm conscious of the time. I mean, we barely scratched the surface here. So I just want to make sure I get any other questions in from people watching that have been asking them, and because we've been very good, we've been answering everyone's questions. I think we could definitely have you guys back on again at some point in the future, and I might get my guy on who's got the Thunderbird puppets. But But before we wrap up, so if you've got any final questions, guys, put them in the chat now, and I'll do them quickly. And also, if you want to reach out to Richard or Paul for a commission, their details are down below. You'll find them there. And Rob runs the Encourage, Teach and Learn Gerry Anderson Facebook group. I haven't got the link for that in the deets below yet, but I have mentioned it. I will put the deets in there. They'll be in there tomorrow. You'll be able to just click on the link if you want to check that out. Phil Jones has asked, anyone use the Tamiya Weathering Master range? Was that the thing that you just referred to, Rob, that was really good at bringing out the detail in the model?
I basically, the majority of the products that I use are Tamiya. If I'm looking for pulling detail, I use what is called a pin wash. This is a very, very thin paint, almost like ink, and provided the model has been gloss varnished, you get this capillary action, so it pulls all the detail out. If you want the pin wash to stay in, you'd need the model to be sprayed in a matte varnish. Once I've then reached the stage where I want to start kind of stencil panel lining, pretty much the techniques that we used on the Anderson shows, then I use it almost like a lady's makeup compact. And you've got these powders, and you can actually apply them with a brush. You can apply them with a sponge. I apply them also with cotton buds or Q-tips, and then you use the kind of weather and over the masking tape, and then you pull the masking tape back, and you're left with a straight line and what almost looks like a weather line, always weathering in the direction that the vehicle's travelling. So with the vehicle travelling forward, you'd have a hard line leading, and then it'd feather off. If it's too heavy, like I said before, then I'll use a filter, and that just takes the edge off so that the model looks more realistic.
One question that I wanted to ask, which I didn't, and I forget the name of what, because the name has varied a bit since it first came out. But when people have completed their miniature armies and things like that, particularly for wargaming, everybody's coating them with a spray of layer. It's like it's supposed to protect the model, stop it from chipping and that kind of thing. Lacquer, yeah, but they called it something else now.
Varnish?
Yeah.
Matte varnish?
Yeah, matte varnish or primer coat. Yeah, and I think I've got one of them in the cupboard over there somewhere. Games Workshop, of course, have got their own name for it and insist that only theirs will work with their figures, no doubt.
End of the day, I've found that I use to lock in pastels and an overspray. It depends what I'm doing, but I do prefer the Humbrol matte varnishes because they don't make anything go white. They used to. They fixed that, and as long as you use the acrylic ones, you can use that on car paint, and it's fine. Doesn't do anything.
Right, and that will protect the model for yes. Travel and that kind of thing, because I think that's quite important if you're going to be carting these.
Because end of the day, you can get that in a matte varnish, a satin varnish, and a gloss.
So, taking our final question from Chris Dye, he was the first man in as well. And guys, those of you that have been watching, really appreciate you tuning in. If you're new to the channel, do give us a sub because we're trying to get up to 1,000 subscriptions as soon as we can. We do quite a lot of different things on the channel, but they all revolve around the world of creative arts, be that acting, filmmakers. I had the director of Rambo 3 on here the other day, but because we showed the trailer for the film, YouTube blocked the bloody interview. And he was also the second unit assistant director on Zulu Dawn, first camera operator on Bridge Too Far. So it was a great interview, and now I've got to re-record it. But we will be getting that back up without the trailer on it this time. But Chris Dye has asked, what are your next planned builds projects? And if anybody has a model just off camera that they haven't shown us yet, now's the now's the time. Rob, I'll go with you first. What have you got next?
This one is a plane from Captain Scarlett. It's the fuselage. That one. The one that's I've just played together. That's it. Yes. This
you all need
model.
an assistant next time. You've all got to have an assistant off screen next time.
This is I hope you can see this okay. This is the fuselage from a plane from Captain Scarlett called the Spectrum passenger jet. She measures around about 19.25 inches when finished. The model maker, a very old friend of mine, also used to work for Tony James. I'll just call him Uncle Bill. His scratch building is tool in, his reproduction is absolutely fantastic, second to none, and I know that I will really enjoy building this model.
I think I've got a photo that you sent me of that. It's not very large, but let's put it up anyway. I think is this? Is that right? If I can increase the size of this picture, I don't think I can. But is that it, Rob? Is that
that's it.
Okay.
That's correct. Yes, that's the Spectrum passenger jet.
Well, they've just been repackaged for the 50th time on Blu-ray and DVD in a new special box presentation that all collectors must have. Please give us your next £100. So if you get the new Captain Scarlett that's out now, you'll be able to grab that. Thanks, Rob. Mr. Gray, not brother of Barry, what's your latest construction? That I know what that is. That's the top of one of the things for Firefly to land on.
That's it.
I thought so.
A prize. So
I do. Yeah, brilliant.
This is a studio scale elevator car. As you can see, it's going to be big.
That is going to be. That's going to be very big. I might have a small one of those somewhere. Let me see if I've got it here.
Oh, it's great. That really does look fantastic. That.
I do have one. Yeah, I'll have to take because I've also got these. These sets are absolutely fabulous. If you guys have, guys, I've got 3 of them, and funny story. These came from Comic Miniatures as well, and Tony said that some bloke called up while I was looking at them and wanted them reserved. And thought he had reserved them, and I bought these and 2 of these other big blue sets that had loads of miniature things in that come with the tiny sidewinder. And I bought them all. That was my big splurge in there. And Tony ended up swearing to the guy on the phone, going, "You can't fucking have them. Someone's bought them now." Good customer service as always from Tony. Yeah. He was always very delicate with customers.
I'll be seeing him Saturday as well.
Well, it'd be great. I tell you what, it'd be great to get him on here. But there was a dad in the store with his kid. Well, I get this out of here, and the kid said, "Oh, I want this, and the father said, "Well, we can't buy it today, but don't worry, it'll be here next week." And Tony just barged in and went, "Not necessarily, sir. This is a collector's store, you see. Everything's really rare. Doesn't mean that it's going to be here next week. In fact, it probably won't." I just saw the guy's face. It was just brilliant. Priceless. So I managed to, there you go. So it's this vehicle here.
Yeah.
I need to get it out of here if I can. They've made this
it's worth
hard.
half as much now. You've took it out of the packet.
Oh, mate, I know it's worth 50 quid less.
It's only worth 2 pence now. That's nothing.
Here we go. So what you're making is an absolutely ginormous version of this. Will it move?
Yeah. The wheels will go round. Yeah, so you better broom it along the ground.
Well, I mean, I'd expect the wheels to go round. Are you going to build 3 of them and a scale Firefly to land on them? Then I'll be really impressed.
No, the Firefly.
You've got room for it. What can it build?
The Firefly should probably be about 10 foot to go with these.
You've got room for it.
No.
Suzette built this earlier. She wanted me to show that, so that was her. That was her.
I can't do it that well. Sorry. I've been inspired though.
I mean, one of the reasons I wanted this set was because this was in it.
Yeah.
And you don't get this anywhere else. And this is also a rebuild, well, would have been originally on the set of the Eddie truck, isn't it?
Yeah.
From, God, what was the name of the episode?
Turn into a radar truck, if I remember.
Turn into a radar truck as well. And it's also a fire engine in City of Fire, I believe. When they have all the different fire engines. So, yeah, okay. So that's... David, that's your next big project then. You have to come back when you've built that so we get you all back on when these things are all completed. Richard, dare I ask what yours is?
It's not sci-fi, and it's for my dad. If I can fit a job in for my dad, I fit a job in for my dad because he runs me all around the country.
Well, you absolutely should. That's very good of you.
This is it. I'm currently working on.
Oh, cool.
It's he's into steam, so this is a steamroller from the 1920s. It's been a pain up the backside to build, but yeah.
These are the sorts of things you see at country fair shows, aren't you? And occasionally you can have a little ride on one, and and you definitely don't want to, put your foot in the wrong place.
Don't want to get underneath that.
No, don't leave your miniatures in front of that when it's moving.
And for Anderson wise, might as well. Hang on, there's two, which I've not shown anybody yet. Well, there's this.
Oh, now that's 0X, which I also have one of here. So we can show people exactly what it is. Wow, yeah. So that, I mean, what's the length of that total, your one there?
About 2 foot.
Yeah. Is that one of the kits that they used to sell in Comic Miniatures? Because there were two or three.
This is the IMI Super Big one. But it was missing wheels. The detail underneath was totally wrong, so it had to all be altered. And I had to make the front end of it. And also, I'm currently working on this as well, which has just come out of the paint shop, which you'll go, oh, hello. Hang on a minute. And it's heavy. I haven't shown any pictures of this baby yet. I'm starting to work on it.
Oh, look at that. It's getting there.
It's getting there. It's just come out, like I say, it came out of the paint shop today. So
nice.
It's been base coloured, and we got the stripes on and everything. I've got
is that a commission for?
That's a commission, yeah. So basically, what it is, there's a company called Product Enterprise, and they produced that Thunderbird 3 that's behind you. They produced Thunderbird 1 in the launch bay, the Fab 1, and this Thunderbird 2. The problem is we always nicknamed it the Green Banana because it's got a bend to it.
Yeah.
But because you can see it, it's you can see the bend.
That's the shape that they always had trouble.
Yeah. The thing about it is, what colour this was originally painted in was horrible. It looked rubbish. It looked terrible. So I've repainted. I must have done about 7 of these. I use a different colour than Rob does. I use Applejack, and David Sissons put me onto this colour. But when you dirty it down, the colour looks right. It looks nice. So I've had no end of these to be done, and also I've been doing repainting the Fab ones as well, and redetailing Parker and Lady Penelope.
Brilliant stuff. That's great. I'm just envious of your guys' abilities because my painting and modelling skills don't even come close. That's why I have the die-cast version of Zero X, which is
I
already
don't blame
painted,
you. I don't blame you.
already painted for me and just clips together nicely, and it's magnetic. So, and it even comes with a rock snake creature. I think that's it there. Yeah,
Nice one.
Yeah, it actually comes with a miniature rock snake from the moon, or Mars, isn't it? It's Mars or something.
Mars, yes.
Mars. So, guys, this has been a very different stream for us because we've had film crew on before, but we've not had anyone from this particular specialty. And actually, the first person I asked if he would do this is the chap who connected me with all of you, which was not Rob, but was our man in Australia with all his Gerry Anderson stuff in a caravan, literally bulging out of every cupboard. Rob, you're going to have to remind me of the guy's name. I feel terrible for forgetting.
Maker, the guy's name, Alan Walker.
Alan Walker, thank you so much. Alan Walker, yeah. And Alan and I got chatting late one night. He posted under a post about the new Thunderbird series. And I saw that post and I got talking with him. And I was just saying, I'm a big fan of the models, particularly the stuff that never got released in kit form or by Dinky or whoever, Crablogger, this, that, and the other, and Sun Probe and so on. And he said, well, let me show you my collection. And he literally has everything. He's got all the buildings as well. He's got the Heathrow control, airport control tower, and he's got everything down to the little cars and trucks in the background. And he's got like the Gray and Houseman vehicle. He's got 3 of those. I'm like, well, you could send one of them to me if it's taking up too much space. I mean, and I did say to him, God forbid that you should pass away suddenly. Where is all that stuff going to go? What's going to happen to it? And I know that, this is kind of my last question, I suppose, for you guys. We've got the science fiction museum that's in. Oh God, some really bad feedback on them. Someone's mic here. Someone eating crisps. The Science Fiction Museum's in Milton Keynes, isn't it? Have you guys ever thought about donating any of your models to that place, maybe, or even starting one of your own? I don't know.
I know quite a few guys have got some pieces there, and some actual original pieces as well, along the Space 1999, the actual Moonbase Alpha, and some other bits and bobs like that. If I start to run out of room and I don't want to give Serenity away, then I might say, you can have her for 4 or 5 months. Don't drop her, please. But no.
I mean, I do feel like there should be a Gerry Anderson museum. And I know a lot of the original stuff doesn't exist, but there are guys like you out there making the stuff as good as it was, maybe even improving on it in a small way here and there with some of the detail and things. And I just, there are people with big collections all over the country, and I have horrible visions of stuff ending up in skips or ex-wives deliciously setting things on fire and burning them, after divorces have come through and whatnot. It would be great if there was a place where, these things could go and they could be seen, because there are massive collections out there in the world. And when I looked at Alan's, that was the first thing I thought of. It's a real shame you've got this all packed away in little cupboards in a caravan. It's an amazing collection. I've never seen anything like it. So that's a conversation to have. Maybe we should start a crowdfunding campaign for a Gerry Anderson museum, but that's a topic for another time. Great, fantastic. Suze, any last questions or comments?
No, thank you for articulating it so clearly to me, because I came on not knowing, but I always find this best to ask. I was really interested in that, and I've got a few young people around me that were very interested in this as well. So thank you, and I enjoyed the models as well.
I mean,
I'd
end of
play
day,
with them.
I'm 50, and when I go this weekend, I'm the young boy, which is a sad thing to say because you could think that it is dying out, the art of model making, but I'm working with a studio in Bristol, and they have literally said that now they're using 12K cameras. When you're using models, you now can make them look amazing and a lot better than CG.
Yeah,
And they still hold the test of time. Like if you watch the film like Alien, and also the original Star Wars, those effects stand the test of time. Yeah, use CG for just tidying up little things, removing cables, removing wires, but you can't, like you were saying about weight, you can't beat a miniature that's crash landing or
agreed.
just exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even though I hated the movie when they did that Star Trek crossover movie and the Enterprise crashed, I quite liked the fact that the crash sequence was a miniature. The Enterprise crash.
You mean the Next Generation one?
Yeah.
That miniature. There's a guy who actually owns that, bought it off them, and it sits in his garage, and it is literally as big as a wall.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is why we need a museum for these things, because they really shouldn't be sitting in people's garages. But...
No, they shouldn't.
No. Guys, listen, we've taken up way too much of your time. We've gone over as well. So thank you so much. Obviously, Mr. Gray, it's way past his bedtime. He's clearly been told off and left us already. Rob, thank you to you and your invisible assistant. And Richard as well. And again, the details are all below, and we'll add anything we're missing tomorrow. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. We've had a couple of subscriptions while we've been live, so that's been fantastic. We've got an interview with some of the cast of False Accounts coming up next week, which is the play that we're doing as the Outcast Creative about the biggest scandal in British history, the post office scandal. So tune in about that. Very different topic, of course. But nonetheless, I'm sure some of you will find it interesting. And we'll see you all again real soon. Everyone can go and get a glass of water who's been watching now, because it is still very, very hot.